What if I told you the U.S. just triggered a shift that could change everything? A military strike on Venezuela. Yes, Venezuela might be the key to the biggest investment opportunity of the next 20 years. But here's the twist. It's not just about oil. This event is shaking the very foundations of gold, silver, and the U.S. dollar system itself. Why should you care? Because if you miss this, you're not just missing a chance for quick profits, you're risking the next 20 years of your financial future. Stick around, because what happens next will change everything you thought you knew about wealth and how fast it can be built. So, what exactly happened? Last Friday night, the U.S. launched a military strike against Venezuela. They captured President Nicolás Maduro, who now faces charges in New York. But here's the kicker. The oil infrastructure was left untouched. Despite the chaos, the production facilities, refineries, and export ports remain mostly intact. Why does this matter? Because Venezuela holds an unimaginable 303 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, 17% of all the oil on the planet. This is a game changer, and it's not just a one-off event. This is part of a bigger pattern, a global shift that's quietly happening right under our noses. So how will this impact you? How does a political crisis in Venezuela ripple through the global markets? Stay tuned, because the implications are enormous, and they go far beyond oil. Here's where it gets interesting. Venezuela's oil reserves are not your typical crude. They hold heavy crude, the hardest, most expensive oil to extract in the world. This isn't like drilling in the Middle East, where oil practically pours out of the ground. No, Venezuelan oil is thick. Think peanut butter, not a smooth liquid. This means it requires massive infrastructure and costly processes to refine. So why does this matter to you? Because while everyone's talking about this oil boom, they're missing the big picture. The U.S. already has refineries built to handle this kind of oil. In fact, they've been prepared for this moment since the 1970s, when they switched their Gulf Coast refineries to process heavy crude. But here's what no one's telling you. This puts the U.S. in a prime position to reduce its reliance on Canadian oil. And that's just the beginning. The real question is, what does this mean for global energy prices, and how can you profit from it? Now, things are about to escalate. The situation in Venezuela isn't just about oil, it's about the global power dynamics. The U.S. military strike is a signal that Washington is fully committed to controlling Venezuela's oil supply. But it doesn't stop there. The reality is, this strike is just the start of a broader reshaping of global energy markets. If Venezuela's oil comes back online, the U.S. could dramatically reduce its dependence on Canada and other oil producers. This isn't just a win for U.S. energy, it's a blow to global oil prices, especially for countries like Canada, who've benefited from supplying heavy crude. This is where things get unsettling. Venezuela, once a failed state, could now become a critical part of America's energy strategy. And it's all about the money. In fact, some analysts predict that Venezuela's oil could undercut Canadian production in both cost and proximity to U.S. refineries. So, what does this mean for the future of oil, and how will it affect your portfolio? Let's take this a step further. The truth is, this isn't just about oil. It's about what Venezuela's oil could do to the global economy. As the U.S. moves in, it's not just securing energy, it's setting up a new economic system. We're talking about control over one of the largest oil reserves on the planet. And the U.S. government is already taking steps to bring that oil to American soil. But here's the catch. The price of oil could plummet as Venezuela's supply floods the market. What does that mean for you? If you're not already invested in U.S. oil majors like Chevron and Exxon, you're about to miss out. These companies are first in line to rebuild Venezuela's infrastructure, and they'll get paid handsomely for it. But there's something even bigger going on. The U.S. is positioning itself to not just control Venezuela's oil, it's shaping a new world order in energy, one where American influence is dominant. And here's the kicker. As Venezuela's oil ramps up, Canadian oil companies will face fierce competition. The U.S. won't need to buy from Canada anymore. They'll prefer the closer, cheaper supply from Venezuela. So while the world watches this play unfold, you need to ask yourself, are you on the winning side? The situation in Venezuela is stacking up quickly. First, we have the U.S. military strike, followed by the U.S. government committing to restore Venezuela's oil infrastructure. Then there's the promise of millions of barrels of oil being shipped straight to the U.S. It's all moving faster than most realize. But here's the bigger picture. As the U.S. moves in, there's another development happening in the background. Venezuela is becoming less of a sovereign nation and more of an economic satellite for the U.S. This isn't just about oil. It's about control. And the pressure is mounting on nations who relied on Venezuela's oil supply. Canada's oil market? It's already facing the pressure. As Venezuelan oil production picks up, Canadian oil companies will start feeling the squeeze, especially as U.S. refineries become the primary market for Venezuela's heavy crude. This is where the game changes. With global oil dynamics shifting, what happens next could lead to a chain reaction that affects everything from gas prices to your investment strategy. So what happens if this continues? The answer? It's not just oil prices that will shift. It's global power, and the U.S. is already positioning itself to benefit. The question now is, are you ready to act before it's too late? Now let's talk about the real-world consequences, because this isn't just about charts and numbers, it's about people. You and I. The Venezuelan crisis, while a political nightmare for those living there, is also sending ripples through global economies. If you're watching this, you might not think Venezuela affects you directly, but you'd be wrong. The truth is, every time the U.S. floods the market with Venezuelan oil, it impacts energy prices for everyone, everywhere. Imagine paying less at the gas station, seeing lower costs for goods because oil is cheaper. Sounds great, right? But here's the flip side. As the U.S. benefits from cheaper oil, it'll push even further into global markets, increasing its economic power while the rest of the world adjusts. Meanwhile, Venezuela's shift towards U.S. influence is already reorienting global alliances and shaping the future of energy and the costs of living. So what's at stake for you? Lower energy prices, yes, but also the chance to position yourself strategically before the shift fully happens. And it's not just Venezuela that's changing, it's the entire global system. If this feels familiar to you, if you've seen these patterns before, let me know in the comments. Let's move beyond the headlines and dig into why this is happening. It's easy to get caught up in the drama of military strikes and political turmoil, but what's really driving this? At the core, it's all about leverage. The U.S. has long known that oil, energy, and control over these resources are key to maintaining global dominance. Venezuela's oil reserves are just the beginning. This whole situation isn't just about restoring a country's oil supply. It's about reshaping the global economic system. U.S. companies already embedded in Venezuela's oil industry are now in the position to benefit from this shift. But there's something else at play. Venezuela's move towards U.S. influence is accelerating the dollarization trend, forcing countries to think differently about their reserves. This isn't just about geopolitical influence. It's a calculated move to control resources, stabilize the dollar, and keep the U.S. economy afloat. The U.S. government knows it can use energy to deflate its debt while maintaining a semblance of stability for everyday citizens. And here's the unsettling truth. While all this is happening, the real inflation is being hidden beneath a facade of manageable oil prices. This is how systems operate behind closed doors. It's about the control of energy, wealth, and the invisible forces that shape the world economy. Now, let's look ahead. The future is still unfolding, but there are two possible paths. First, we could see Venezuela's oil production ramp up, slowly at first, but gaining momentum. Over the next 2 to 5 years, the U.S. and its allies will invest in Venezuela's infrastructure, and those millions of barrels of oil will start flowing. As this happens, global oil prices will likely drop, especially for heavy crude, with Venezuela becoming a key supplier for U.S. refineries. For those positioned correctly, this could mean huge profits, especially if you're invested in U.S. oil companies, mining stocks, or precious metals. But here's the flip side. If Venezuela's oil production faces more setbacks, whether from internal instability or external interference, the entire plan could stall. The global market could face even more volatility, and the power balance could shift in unpredictable ways. The uncertainty is palpable. What's clear, though, is that both paths lead to a significant change in the global energy landscape, and your next move will determine if you're on the winning side or left behind. The question is, will you be ready when the tipping point comes? As we wrap up, there's one key takeaway that will define the next decade. Venezuela's oil reserves, once a symbol of economic collapse, are now the linchpin for the next global energy shift. The U.S. has positioned itself to control this massive resource, and it will have ripple effects across every market. From oil to gold, from silver to energy prices, the moves made in Venezuela will shape your financial future. But here's the final piece. If you're not already thinking about how to position yourself yourself for this shift through investments in energy, precious metals, or even mining stocks, you're already behind. The rich aren't just investing in assets. They're using these shifts to grow their wealth exponentially. The window is closing, but it's not too late. If you want to stay ahead, follow for more analysis as this situation develops. And remember, in times of global change, those who adapt fastest are the ones who come out on top. Stay informed, stay ahead.